Everybody, my name's Ed. Okay, so we're going to do another comics review, and this time we are going to take a look at the classic Green Arrow Green Lantern run from Neal and Neal Adams from the early 70's. What I have here, I don't have the originals, but I do have the Baxter reprints from the early 80's that DC put out. So here we go. We have issue 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So this is the complete run of all the issues they did. It started out in Green Lantern, Green Arrow, 76, I believe, and I think the last part concluded in a couple of issues of the Flash. So we will get to that in just about 1 minute. Okay, so the Denny O'Neil, Neal Adams run on Green Lantern and Green Arrow, roughly from issue 76 to 89, is viewed by many fans as a standout series among the history of superhero comics. It's been highly influential in the genre in terms of subject matter and art, and O'Neil and Adams became superstars in the industry, although Adams was probably already on his way. So just to talk about the actual characters a little bit, so in DC Comics superhero continuity, there's been many Green Lanterns, but we're mostly focused here on the Hal Jordan Green Lantern. So the Hal Jordan version was created by Matt Broom and Gil Kane in 1969. He was a test pilot who acquires a magic power ring from an alien and dedicates himself to fighting evil in our sector of space. Hal's civilian design was allegedly based on actor Paul Newman, who was a supposed neighbor of Gil Kane's. He was an early hit of the Silver Age Renaissance in superhero comics right after the Barry Allen Flash, who debuted a few years earlier. Now, the Green Arrow was created in 1941 by Mort Weisinger and George Papp. Oliver Queen was a playboy millionaire who was stranded on a desert island. He taught himself to use a bow and arrow in order to hunt for food. And returns to society, he uses his new skills to fight crime. Originally kind of a superhero version of Robin Hood, the character quickly became sort of a Batman knockoff, complete with a kid's sidekick, arrow car, arrow cave, etc. In 1969, his look was redesigned by Neal Adams, and he lost his fortune and became a champion for the working class. So in the late 60s, the sales of Green Lantern were starting to decline. So a decision was made to try to breathe a little new life into the title. So issue 76, published in 1970, it went to a new direction guided by Denny O'Neil and Neal Adams. O'Neil was a former journalist who thought it might be possible to deal with various social issues in the title. Green Lantern is depowered and joins with Green Arrow as they travel across the country and meet various people and problems that there were, in the news at the time. They're joined by the old timer, who's a former Guardian or of the Guardians, were the aliens who invented the the Green Lantern power rings, and the Golden Age heroine, Black Canary, who interestingly enough was still being drawn as a young woman, although technically she should have been middle-aged. So Hal and Ollie would sometimes find themselves on opposite sides of various issues. Green Lantern would often take the conservative point of view of an argument, and Green Arrow would represent the liberal side. Okay, so some of the back covers of the Baxter edition show some of the original covers from the original printings. So just really quickly, Heart of America, War Zone. There's one about indigenous rights in America. This one kind of recreates a scene from, this is supposed to look like a newspaper front page. And those weird reminiscence of the Chicago 7. Harpies. This is the one that kind of makes fun of women's lib and feminism in a way, sort of. And here's this one. And which one? Oh, here, this one has. I have to be careful here. Here's this one. This is the Charles Manson one. Okay, so we're gonna move along here. Just out of shock, some people are setting up for a professional photo shoot. See, they saw me here first and they came in to hog in on my action. No, I'm just kidding. All right, let's just move to the next scene. Okay, so just to give a little background on the creators, uh, Denny O'Neil is probably best known for his work at DC Comics, fan favorite runs on Batman, this Green Lantern, Green Arrow run. The Question. He started out as a writer for a newspaper in Missouri. He actually started his comics career doing a small handful of stories for Marvel before moving to DC and Charlton. O'Neil was behind the infamous depowering of Wonder Woman in the early 70's run, which began right before the Green Lantern, Green Arrow run. And in the early 80's, O'Neil did writing and editing for Marvel and worked on titles such as Spider-Man, Daredevil, Iron Man, and G.I. Joe. Eventually, Denny O'Neil did find his way back to DC. Neal Adams, fan favorite comic book artist and commercial artist, has had a really fascinating career. Most famous for, or I should say, most famous to superhero fans for the work he's done on multiple titles, including again Batman, the X-Men, Green Arrow, this Green Lantern run, Deadman, and the Avengers. Multiple covers across various companies. He's done indie titles. He formed his own comic book company called Continuity, and he worked on short-lived titles there, such as Miss Mystic and Armor. Adams started at Archie Comics, believe it or not, moved to the commercial art world, and then to the Ben Casey syndicated newspaper strip. After the Ben Casey, Adams did work for numerous ad agencies while bouncing back and forth and assisting and ghosting on various commercial art and comic strip projects. He found his way onto Warren's Black and White horror magazines, and then to DC Comics. Okay, so to kind of start getting into it a little bit more, the comic is pretty much a product of its time, and I think we need to recognize what was going on in pop culture and just regular society. In the media, the late '60s, early '70s, we had stuff coming out like Bonnie and Clyde, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, 2001, Easy Rider, Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, uh, Bob, Carol, Ted, and Alice, Laughing on television, Smothers Brothers, Bob Dylan, Beatles. There was the Broadway musical here, the hippie Jesus movement, the Back to the Land movements, the commune. Well, that's kind of the whole sort of back to land, but people living on communes and stuff. So all these things were going on. All these things were changing culture, and it was changing pop culture. Comics are a part of that. The title is very well aware of those things that were going on. And like I said, this comic was pretty much part of that zeitgeist. Okay, so some of the stories that stand out for me are the first story, Let No Evil Escape My Sight, where Green Lantern and Green Arrow kind of get together and decide they're going to sort of take on the issues facing the, common man or working man. The story where they have to help these miners out. There's the Charles Manson story. There's a story about indigenous rights. This one also introduced John Stewart to the Green Lantern mythos in the DC universe. So those stories are tighter, they're more focused on what they were trying to say, and they pull it off in a more entertaining way. Some of the stories that I think kind of fail or fall flat are the one about overpopulation, the one about feminism. These stories are kind of weak sci-fi tales, and while the analog or the analogy and the symbolisms pretty obvious, stories kind of fall flat. There's a tale that takes place at a children's boarding school with characters who are caricatures of Nixon and Kissinger, and they come across as just kind of bad parody. The environmentalist story here. It's got this Jesus figure, and it's just too ham-fisted to be believed. Now, of course, the most popular story is the two-part drug story where Speedy gets addicted to drugs. It got a lot of press and positive reaction from the general public. At the time, the Comics Code Authority didn't allow any mention of drugs, even anti-drug messages. Spider-Man did an anti-drug story around the same time that didn't have the Comics Code approval stamp on it. But the positive press that these comics got helped loosen some of your strengths of the code. My personal take is that while the Green Lantern Green Arrow story is important, it's pretty ham-fisted and doesn't really deal with the reality of drug addiction. Um, in a plausible, or I should say realistic manner. Speedy gets over his heroin addiction in like one weekend, and it also sort of makes Oliver Queen look like a jerk. I mean, his ward comes to him for help, and he like backhands him, and at some point in the comic, the bad guys capture Hal and Ollie and forcibly give them drugs, and they start seeing monsters, and it's like, what drugs was this even, were these even supposed to be? So the new Green Lantern Green Arrow title did get some mainstream press, but it didn't sell super well, and it was eventually canceled. When it was brought back, it kind of stuck to a standard superheroes and didn't focus as much on social issues this go around. And yeah, and even though it's just a comic for young people, I think the stories and the title was trying to grapple with America and its all its problems, and that's unsure of its values at that time. It's very much a mainstream status quo comic, but it's at least trying to acknowledge the counterculture and youth culture of its time. Like I said before, it definitely taps into pop culture and leans into references to either biker exploitation movies, like I said, feminism, civil rights, hippie Christianity, and it kind of to lean slightly towards a more liberal point of view. That is, without necessarily advocating for like big systemic changes. Okay, so it's pretty much a really, really groundbreaking series, groundbreaking run by O'Neill and Adams. Basically, it came out at a very interesting time in American history, and pretty much, reflected a lot of those crazy changes that were going on to society. Also, as far as comic book history as well, a part of moving the superhero genre forward. You had great changes in the type of content you were able to do, as well as no doubt the actual art and visual motifs. So that's pretty much it. Thank you very much. Like I said, great series reflecting some interesting things as far as storytelling, politics, and art. Great piece of comic book history. Thank you very much, and you guys have a great day.